Hey, what's going on everyone? So today we're going to be taking a look and testing out and reviewing the Allpowers R1500 solar generator and also the Allpowers SP039 600 w solar panel. Now I also have the Allpowers SP037 400 w solar panels. We're going to be running two of those into parallel into this unit to see what kind of input we can get. We're also going to be throwing this 600 w panel on my gazebo roof to see what kind of output we can get into this unit. We're going to check out the charging rate with dual charging with both solar and a small generator at the same time to see how that works. And we're just going to throw this thing through a ton of testing, so make sure you guys stick around to see how it performs. Now I do want to disclose that Allpowers did send me this for testing and review, and if you're interested, I'll put a link down in the description where it will be an affiliate link if you guys are interested in picking one of these up. And I'm hoping to get this video out there as soon as possible, because with their current sale for Black Friday, I believe the sale ends around November 30th, but this thing is $400 off and you could pick it up for $500 just for this unit itself, which is crazy for an 1152 watt hour unit that can output 1800 watts of current. So I don't know about you, but I really hate boring unboxings, but we are going to go into what this thing comes with really quick. So with this unit itself, you get a nice little storage bag here. You get, of course, the charge cable, and then you get an MC4 to XT60 cable for charging from solar. And then, of course, your user manual and your warranty card there. With the solar panel, you get the user manual, you get 6 carabiner clips for hanging the panel, you get an MC4 to XT60 cable, you get some cable ties, and you get an MC4 to MC4 extension cable. Now these carabiners are going to be nice for hanging that solar panel because the 600 watt panel does not come with legs. So if you're trying to get a panel to angle towards the sun for maximum efficiency, this may not be the panel for you. But if you just want something quick and easy to lay out on the ground when the sun's overhead, or possibly hanging it somewhere, then this might be a good option for you. Now this solar generator has two 100 watt USB-C outputs, two 18 watt USB-A outputs. It has a 12 volt car output adapter there. It has 4 110 volt max 1800 watt outlets on the front, and that's for all combined. You can go up to 1800 watts. One thing I did notice that it didn't have, which I wish it would have, would be two 5521 ports here. It's kind of odd that they don't have those because even the R600 had those, which is pretty nice. And this does have two 15 watt wireless charging pads on the top. They actually do charge really fast. I charged my phone up last night with them and I was surprised how quick they charged. Now on the side of this unit, it has two input ports for an expansion battery, port 1 and port 2, so you can add 2 additional spare batteries to that, which is nice to see. I don't believe those are available currently just yet, but I'd love to get one and test out whenever they do, so hopefully I can. And then over here on this side is where you have your inputs. You have your AC input that you can charge up to 15 amp max. I believe it's like 1500 watt max in that. And then you have your XT60 input, 12 to 60 volts, 13 amp max. This does have a lithium iron phosphate battery, which can be recharged at least 3,500 times, lasts safely for 10 years. The lithium iron phosphate batteries are safer than lithium ion batteries, so I always love seeing that type of battery in these units. And this does have a UPS mode with 15 millisecond switching time. Now one thing I do want to mention that I did test is I ran this unit down all the way to 0 with the outlets on. Once it gets down to 5%, it shuts the outlets off. And then you are able to use the last 5% with the outputs here on the front. So if your power went out and this thing did drain down to 5% and the power came back on, the outlets would not come back on. So you couldn't leave this somewhere plugged in like to a refrigerator thinking that, okay, I'm gonna be away for a week. If the power goes out, this will run my refrigerator for a few hours, and then when the power comes back on, it will recharge up. It will, but it will not turn the AC outlets back on if it reaches down to that 5% and shuts them off. There are some units out there that will turn the AC outlets back on if they were on when the unit shut down, so keep that in mind. But it will be a nice backup for a computer or things like that, you know, while you're working on things. And then obviously if the power does come back on before it reaches that 5%, then it's no issues. It will just do the pass-through charging, it will charge the unit back up, and everything will be just fine. But without further ado, let's get into the testing. But first and foremost, please consider subscribing if you find this video helpful and interesting. Please leave a thumbs up and leave a comment down below because it really helps my channel out. And check out some of my other videos, especially if you want to learn about e-bikes, other solar generators, solar panels, fixing things, and things like that. If that's what you're into, please consider subscribing. Let's get into it. Okay, so this thing is supposed to output 1800 watts easily. We're going to go ahead and ramp up the wattage to as close as we can get to that and run that for 5 minutes to see how it performs and if it can do it. So got my heat gun on high. I'm charging a solar generator currently. There's 1600 watts and you can see pure sine wave, so really nice on that. Now I'm going to turn on another blow dryer on low. Actually 1861 watts, 1850. Go ahead, start a timer here. And I might just leave it on there and we'll see if it can do it or if it will cut. All right, so there is 5 minutes. No problem at all. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the blow dryer on the next level up and we'll see if it cuts power to everything. All right, there we go. Cut power, but easily 1860 watts for 5 minutes, no problems at all. Let's see if we can reset these outlets. Yep, no problem, right back on. All right, so some of the things that I tested on this was the AC phantom power draw. So when the AC outlets are on and it's not outputting any power, just the unit's on with the inverter, it uses about 2.3% of charge per hour. The DC phantom power draw with just the DC outlets on, not anything plugged into it, was about 0.42% discharge per hour on those. So seems pretty efficient on the DC, not too bad on the AC. This is rated for 1152 watt hours, and according to my test that I did, I discharged the first 50% at an 800 watt discharge rate because I was charging up another solar generator with it, and then the last 50% was about 180 watts to finish charging that solar generator, and I got a total of 950 watt hours out of it, down to that 5%, and then I was able to pull about another 30 watt hours for that last 5% using the DC output ports. So overall, I got about 980 watt hours out of it, which was 85% efficiency on the inverter. And then of course, if you're drawing a really small amount of power, like say 25 watts, 50 watts for the whole time, it's not gonna be as efficient because it's gonna use a little bit more energy because it's gonna be on for a longer amount of time. But according to my testing that I did, like I said, 85% efficiency. All right, so now we have the SP039 600 watt all-power solar panel on the gazebo roof, and we have the SP037 400 watt all-power solar panel down facing the sun. Now that one's pretty much lined up with the sun. This one is facing this way and the sun's coming in at a little bit of an angle, so it's not going to be as efficient as it should be, but let's see how they compare to each other. Now I have them both hooked up to my solar panel multimeters here, one for each panel. And during this testing, I will be using this solar panel multimeter. And the reason I like to compare panels with this is because it will show you exactly what that panel is capable of. Because when certain units get to a certain charge level, sometimes that charge controller will regulate the different charge rates and you won't see the full potential of that panel into the unit. So I always like to plug it into here, especially when I'm comparing panels, to see what the difference is between the two panels' maximum output potential is. And if you're interested in picking one of these up as well, I'll leave that down below in the description where you could find a link to it easily. I have the 600 watt panel going into the one on the left and the 400 watt panel going into the one on the right. We're getting 364.3 watts at 8.16 amps. Just dropped a little bit out of the 600 watt panel, and we're getting 344.3 watts at 10.39 amps out of the 400 watt panel. So there's about a 20 watt gain from the 600 watt panel versus the 400 watt panel, but like I said, that 600 watt panel is facing this way and the sun's coming in at this angle, which is how I have this panel facing. And now we're gonna see how well this panel does in shading. So right now we're getting 358 watts of power. Gonna go ahead and shade one of these, and now it's getting 254 watts of power with just that one panel shaded. We're gonna go ahead and shade a bunch of them now. Now there's 5 out of the 6 panels shaded, and we're getting 0.25 watts, so you can't do that. Now there's 3 of the 6 panels shaded, and we're getting 124.8 watts. So very nice in shading. Let's try to simulate maybe like a little bit of half cloud cover here, and hard to hold the cardboard and show you guys, but it's 168 watts. So now with 2 panels covered, it's 191 watts. Oh, actually it's 238 watts. So 238 watts with 2 panels covered. out of the 6. So really good performance in the shade. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that panel down, stick it over here, and we're gonna do this test again when the sun's hitting it straight on, and it's gonna be hitting that panel straight on. And then we'll see how well it does like that. But first, let's see how many watts of power we can get into the Allpowers 1500 out of these solar panels. So right now I have the 400 watt panel plugged in. We're getting 333 watts. And then I have my meter plugged into the 600 panel, and it's bringing in 361 watts. So about 30 watts more on the 600 watt panel. Let's go ahead and switch this and plug the 600 watt panel into this now. And we're getting 339 watts with the 600 watt panel plugged into the Allpowers 1500. And it shows we're getting 349 watts with my multimeter out of the Allpowers 400 watt panel. So not a huge difference right here going into this one, but like I said, that one's not facing the sun, so let's get it set up over on this side. Okay, so now I got the panel on the roof, this one on the ground. The sun is shining directly down into them this way. Let's compare them and see how they compare to each other. So on the 400 watt panel going into this one, we're getting 319.9 watts at 34.3 volts, 9.3 amps. And on the 600 watt panel on the roof going into this one, 370 watts, 44.8 volts at 8.25 amps. So as you can see there side by side, I'm getting about 50 more watts of power out of the 600 watt panel, but it's down at 8.06 amps versus just about 9 amps on the 400 watt panel. So if your solar generator is limited to 8 amps, but it has a high voltage input, then the 600 watt panel should give you more input into it than the 400 watt panel. But you can see the 400 watt panel still produces really well. Okay, so now this is supposed to have dual charging with AC and solar. So we're gonna try this little 1000 watt generator into it with solar and see what kind of input we can get. I'm getting 327 watts with solar right now. I'm gonna go ahead and plug the generator into it and we'll see what it ramps up to. The generator just kicked up. And it's still looking like, oh, there it goes. So 701 watts. Now I do have it set on mute mode because this is only a 1000 watt generator. So if I put it on regular mode, it will kick the breaker on the generator. But that's really nice that I can lower it down to mute mode, still get 700 watts of input with dual power, and be able to bring along that small gas generator if need be. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to bump it up to regular mode. It shows 703 watts here on the app at 84%, which is what matches the display, so really nice. Let's go put it in standard mode, and it will probably blow the breaker on the generator. You can hear it ramping up, and it blew the breaker. Oh, did not blow the breaker. That's strange. The generator's ramping down now. Let me put it on non-eco mode, and we'll see what happens. So it's down to 535 watts. So I'm going to go ahead and lower it back down to mute mode, see what happens. I'm going to lower it back down to mute mode, see if we can get back to 700 watts. Okay, so it was not able to get back up to 700 watts, but I think it's because it reached over 90%. Once it reaches a higher percentage, typically your charge rate will drop, so I'm assuming that's why. But now I have a blow dryer plugged in, and we're gonna see if the pass-through charging works with solar coming in, AC coming in from the generator, and it does say UPS mode, so we'll see if this works and see if the generator ramps up. Yes, it did. So now I'm pulling wattage, but it's coming through, straight through into the blow dryer here. So really nice to see there. So yes, really good pass-through charging while I'm putting solar and AC through a generator. Try it one more time. Now let's bump it up. That's pretty awesome. That works perfect. Now the Allpowers is at 100%, and it says on the display that it has 0 watts of input. However, it's still getting 180 watts of input from the solar panel. Now I noticed the same thing happening when I charged from AC. It still was putting in a good bit of power for like an hour or so, and I think it's balancing the cells. It's fairly new. Sometimes you need to do a couple charge and recharge cycles to reset that BMS, and hopefully it lines itself out. But once this reaches down closer to around 25 watts, I'm gonna go ahead and plug it into the Allpowers R600 and see if that 600 watt panel will work in there. And that's amazing if it does. This is supposed to support up to 60 volts, but we'll find out. All right, so the unit is at 100% now, and it's not taking in any wattage. So we're gonna go ahead and unplug it from the R1500, and we're gonna go ahead and plug in the R600. And it is charging. So that's awesome. 600 watt solar panel in a tiny little solar generator like this. 233 watts. All right, now we have 2 of the Allpowers SP037 400 watt panels ran into parallel with each other. According to my solar panel multimeter, we're getting 640 watts, 33.43 volts at 19.15 amps. And this solar generator, the R1500, is rated for 12 to 60 volts, 13 amp max. So let's see what kind of amperage and wattage we can get into this thing, with 2 of those being ran in parallel. All right, so we're getting 496 watts of input, and it is capped at 12.85 to, it's almost 13 amps, which is what it's rated for. So now to get up to the 13 amp, 650 watt limit input of the Allpowers 1500, you would have to get your voltage up higher. So maybe paralleling 2 of the 600 watt panels into this would do a little bit better, but not bad for 2 panels. All right, so now we're gonna deploy this panel on my garage roof here. That, and that. All right, there we go. Let's see what kind of output we can get out of that. And we are getting 352 watts of output from the 600 watt solar panel when it's mounted on my garage roof. And the sun is right there, coming down at this angle here. Now, one thing I do want to mention about that 600 watt solar panel that I noticed on my solar panel multimeter is that I was getting 57.45 volts open circuit current, and it says in the manual that it's supposed to be 52.8 volts. So if you're going into your solar generator, make sure that your solar generator can accept up to a 60 volt input if you do want to use this 600 watt Allpowers SP039 panel. Because if you put a panel that is too high of a voltage into your unit that doesn't accept that amount of voltage, you could burn some things out if your unit does not have protections against that. All right, everyone, there you have it. I hope you found this video and this testing helpful. If you did, please check out some other videos. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment below, and I will see you guys all around on the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone. Whew.